I don't see with anabolic steroids, like the interesting things that I see is like, I don't think people understand how they work still. I think that people think that they're an incredible Hulk drug. Like you take it and then you transform and then, and you rage out in the streets and like you inject it and like.
Fighting out of Sacramento, California!
Woo! What you gonna do?
Better. Stronger.
Son of a bitch.
Faster.
Oh yeah!
We had that. Remember I told you this. I told you this maybe last week. I just butchered your expression, which is what I do with everything. But I said, kill your most dangerous enemy first, right? What's the right way to say it?
Well, that actually is a great way to say it. Kill them all. Yeah, but the way that I was saying it was, you need to fix your addictions in the order that they're killing you.
Yes.
Right. I mean, that's kind of the same concept. Mine was just specifically about addiction, but yours actually makes the most sense anyway, right? Like it's like in a video game, you want to kill the most imposing bad guy first that can kill you.
Right.
Like you don't want to try to shoot all the little guys. They're like pests.
And I brought this up too because I was really getting on her about her mobility. Like, dude, you need to start doing your stretching. She hurt her neck like a year ago. And, she's a woman, so she's humped over. She's working in her, so women get that bad posture if they're not real intentional about it. And I said, dude, you just really gotta work on your mobility. And I was saying like, hey, I've made big gains.
Did you actually call her dude when you said it?
I call her dude or babe.
You duded her?
Mama. Yeah.
I like mama. Hey, mama.
I do call her mama a lot. It's probably my preferred nickname for her. But I said like, I've really the last like 9 months maybe, I've trying to fix my hips, my hip mobility and my lower back mobility. It's been something really important. And I was like, I said, I know that this thing, it's one of those things where you don't realize you're in trouble. And then with your mobility, once you realize you're in trouble, it's a long road back. She's like, hey, I'm working on my diet. I'm doing my morning walks. I'm doing doing her circuit training. Like I'm getting there. So that's like anything I can do to just free up her time a little bit, to give her the enthusiasm and energy to chase her dreams outside of being a good nurse. I think that's important. So yeah.
Performance enhancing drugs, Russell. I got some right here. This is some Mind Bullet. I love performance enhancing drugs. I got coffee, right? And I got Kratom right here, which I'm going to take right now on camera. Mindbullet.com/Chris Bell if you want to get a shot of the most amazing performance enhancing supplement in the world. And while I love performance enhancing drugs, do they belong in the military? That's the question today. So I have a clip that I sent you. Maybe you can pull it up.
Yeah, let me get it up for you.
Some of the most elite warriors, the Navy SEALs, and their training is extreme and intense. Well, now after the death of one of its recruits, the New York Times is reporting on a both dangerous and sometimes deadly training culture that involves brutality, even drugs. Chief Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz with more.
Stunning allegations rocking one of the most elite military units in the world, the Navy SEALs. A New York Times investigation finding widespread use of performance-enhancing drugs among SEAL trainees determined to make the cut to become one of the few to make it through the SEAL selection. According to the Times, a Navy...
Let's talk about this a little bit. This is really interesting.
Yeah.
So the New York Times came out with a big article saying that this one Navy SEAL just recently died. I guess there's been probably 11 deaths in the past decade. Maybe. So like over 10 years, 10 deaths, maybe a death a year, maybe in the Navy SEALs training, which is kind of a lot, I mean, that's for people to actually die in the training. A lot of people drop out of the training, but to have people actually, die in the training for it, it is pretty wild. What these guys undergo is insane, and we know some Navy SEALs, and just the stuff they can do with their body is absolutely incredible. And I think we need people like that. But to have people like that and not have them burning the candle at both ends all the time, should they be able to use steroids? You know, should there be a program, perhaps? Should there be something that would allow these guys to perform at the elite level they perform, that doesn't mess with their mindset, that doesn't mess with, you know, their health, that's not going to kill them because they're doing it illegally? I would venture to say they would be much healthier if, for example, the Navy SEALs hired Merrick Health. I'm not saying specifically Merrick Health, but like imagine if Merrick Health was working with the U.S. Navy SEALs to optimize all their hormones and blood lipid levels and you know, every biomarker that would make you an elite warrior. It seems like we would be much better off with the health of, you know, of our soldiers.
You know, I know I've seen clips of Dr. Dom Agostino talking about doing some research and programs for the Navy SEAls and probably beyond.
A lot of underwater stuff.
Probably the groups that we don't even hear about and things like that. It would almost feel like irresponsible if they didn't. I would imagine behind the scenes. I mean, I don't know. What have you?
Well, what it sounds like here is that these are just like young kids just getting into the SEALs, and they're like, "Hey, I'm just, you know, diving into this, and I don't know if I'm going to make it through Hell Week, so I need some steroids, right?" Mm-hmm. And like rather than kids, and you still might get people jumping to do that. Think about it. You're auditioning for something, so it's like if you were to try out for the NFL. And you knew how the testing worked, and like you got tested, and then there's a window of like a couple weeks where you could use drugs and still go to the combine. Wouldn't you still use drugs and go to the combine?
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you? Yeah. I don't think they test like before and after. So it's like you could technically, you know, get your drug tests and then take a bunch of quick acting drugs to get a little bit stronger. It wouldn't help like super, you know, it wouldn't help so much that it'd be crazy, but it would definitely help. Mm-hmm. You know, so I think that like what we're getting here is like the young kids that are just recruited in, they're trying to use steroids to get through Hell Week. The problem is that the kid that died of pneumonia, and it had like zero to do with the so-called performance-enhancing drugs. But when they found the kid dead and they went to his Foot Locker, they found drugs in there. Now, on this video, the mother actually says, my son would never use drugs. They must have been somebody else's. You know, they must have belonged to, you know, some of the people he was associating with or whatever. So you have like complete denial from the mom. She's like, he was a natural athlete. And I mean, she could be telling the truth, or she'd be telling the truth as much as she knows. Like, you know, when we did Bigger, Stronger, Faster, there's my sweet mom going, my boys would never take steroids. They're good. They're good boys.
Not to be cynical, but there might be some life insurance implications involved with his death as well.
Maybe.
Not, you know, not to be cynical.
Yeah, so maybe you don't want to admit to any drugs or any. There were no drugs found in his system though, so that sort of backs what the mom is saying. There was nothing found in his system. I don't know how deep those tests run. Like, are they running tests for Anavar? You know what I mean? Like what kind? So they found no drugs in his system, but what drugs do they test for? When, like, I don't know if they did a full anabolics panel on him. I would imagine they would test for heroin, cocaine. You know what I mean? Certain drugs. But I don't know that they would test for, you know, be able to test for steroids or anything like that in that immediate of a test. But I'm not sure. I'd have to look into it deeper.
Is it, man, forgive me if I'm wrong, but isn't it sort of known that these fighter pilots and long-range bomber pilots?
So that's what I was going to say. They used Adderall. So they use performance-enhancing drugs when you're talking about fighter pilots. Actually, there's a scene in Bigger, Stronger, Faster where all the fighter pilots talk about taking amphetamines and flying the planes. And it's not just that they allow it, they require it. They don't require that you take the pill, but they require that you have the pills on board. And that's really interesting because it's like you have all these people like, they definitely shouldn't, take steroids. And it's like, well, yeah, amphetamines. I mean, you're up in a plane for 10 hours and you can't fall asleep. So we need these guys on amphetamines, otherwise there's no other way to, another way to do this. I don't see with anabolic steroids, like the interesting things that I see is like, I don't think people understand how they work still. I think that people think that they're an incredible Hulk drug. Like you take it and then you transform and then, and you rage out in the streets and like you inject it and like, it is such a slow acting pain in the ass process. I mean, you know how hard it is. Anybody out there that's tried to build muscle naturally knows how hard it is. And this sort of gives it that kick in the ass. But your hopes and dreams of how much it would give you a kick in the ass is not nearly what you think it's going to be. Because you see all these guys that are super jacked and you think, oh, well, that guy's just on a bunch of shit. And maybe he is on a bunch of shit. But you still have to put in all that hard work. There's just no other way around it. Some people have genetics to have bigger, fuller muscles and all that stuff. But I think that people don't understand that like steroids are a long process of a drug. It takes a long time for these things to get in your system and actually work and actually make a difference. And it's like weeks at a time. It's never just like, flash in the pan. So, my opinion on all this is I think that the military should find ways that people could use some of these drugs, to our advantage. If you have soldiers and they're running around out there with 400 testosterone, wouldn't it be better if they were at 1,000? Like, I mean, I'm not sure that that's the answer.
I mean, these are soldiers that are tired, overworked, I mean, their testosterone is going to tank just under the load of living, right?
Yeah.
So if they're, quote unquote, downrange doing door kicking, it seems.
Well, it's interesting because you might not feel bad having a testosterone of like 400 or even 200. You might not feel that bad, but if you feel how you felt on like 200 as compared to when it's at 1,000, then you would notice and you'd be like, oh wow, that does make a difference. Like you do feel more optimal. You do feel like things are easier. So I think that that's something that the military should definitely be looking into so that they don't end up, behind the times, basically. I always say this because, like, I feel about like this with the NFL and other professional sports, like the UFC. It's like if you're not going to allow steroids in a certain way, like if you're just going to completely get rid of them, you're going to have an audience that's all jacked and tan with perfect teeth and perfect hair and everything because they've got all the enhancements. And then the guys in the ring are going to be puny. You know what I mean? Because everybody in the crowd's allowed to get whatever they want done to them, but the guys fighting aren't, and so it's almost weird how as an athlete you're not afforded these advantages that would really only benefit an athlete.
Just a little side note, and I'm pretty certain of what I'm about to tell you. 4, 5, 6 years ago, I was on a Facebook group regarding TRT when I was just first starting to kind of get curious and look into it. And I'm pretty certain that there was a lot of veterans that said that they could get prescribed TRT through the VA.
I believe you can.
So, I mean, what
are we doing here? Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. Yeah, like, what are we doing here? Like, you can't have that to get into the Navy, but you have to get out. Like, once you get out and you're older, then you can have it. And it's like, I just think we need to stop looking at this, when you're young, your testosterone's high and you don't need it. And then I think we should look more at what are optimal testosterone levels. Does it matter if it's 400 and you feel great, does it matter? Or should we push it to 1,000? Would you be a better human? But no, I really want to know. I mean, I'm more interested in finding out for people's health and for people's longevity. Like, is it better, or is it that analogy of like running the engine too hot You know, are we running the engine too hot at 1,000? And then our bodies break down because our bodies can't actually handle it. You know, we can only ask the body to do so much, and we can only optimize it so much before the wheels fall off. You know,
Perfect analogy.
and I think that that's another interesting thing we should look at. But you know, when you're asking people to join the Navy SEALs, and you talk to these people about what they do for their training, and they have these one of the most like famous things, they showed it in that little video clip that we showed, is like they like tie their hands behind their back and they make them like bob in water for like an hour or something like that, like, and you got to just not drown, you know. And I think when you're asking people to do things like that, and then you're telling them, but you have to do it all naturally, there's no way that you can enhance this, there's no way that you know that you can cheat this. I mean, that's going to make it really hard. So maybe they're if they're not going to allow the drugs, maybe they need to look at what their standards are. And I know a lot of people get mad, like, well, they shouldn't lower their, you know, standards and blah, blah, blah. But just ask, like, is all that stuff actually necessary? I don't know. I don't know what they actually do out in the field. So, like, is that all actually necessary to get the job done? Or is it archaic and old and outdated, and we have better ways to train nowadays? You know, I think, like, we do evolve and get smarter, but sometimes we're stuck in this idea that it's got to be old school and really hard. But I look at it like efficiency. Like, if you could train, if there was a way to train better, maybe we should be looking at that too. You know?
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me that people get up in arms over Navy SEALs taking steroids when and the same thing with the police force, right? Like, the police aren't allowed to take steroids; they're not supposed to take steroids. But in my opinion, I think that they should be allowed to. I don't think anybody should abuse steroids by any means, and I don't think, like, cops should be out there injecting willy-nilly whatever they want. But I do think they should be allowed to go to a clinic of their choice or whatever, and I do believe that they should actually have that paid for as well.
Chris, how many decades before some Boston Dynamics dog robot is in there with rifles on its side, just doing all that dirty work to begin with? Like, the era of human contact is probably vastly closing, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Drones at some point, I think, are going to take over a lot of that.
And is that going to get rid of the racism? That's a crazy, like, you know, it's like that's an interesting interesting thought. Is if, like, if the officer can't make a decision.
You know, I was thinking more military, but as far as police enforcement,
Yeah.
just an AI that just recognizes this
Recognizing
AI doesn't
that
see
crime
this
and-
AI doesn't see race or gender. It just
Yeah.
sees crime.
Yeah.
Drop it! Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say about this this subject. I just wanted to go over it because I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, that's great.
That you know, a kid dies of pneumonia, and all of a sudden they launch like a steroid investigation. And steroids have such a bad stigma, but we need to turn that around. We need to make the stigma that, like, testosterone is good for men. Men need testosterone. We shouldn't be fearing testosterone, and we shouldn't even be fearing estrogen, because we need a healthy balance of estrogen to testosterone as well. And a lot of us just, like, cover it up. A lot of the foods that we eat today, this is why I push it so important to stick to a healthy diet, in my opinion, like mainly meat and fruit, because these things like meat and fruit don't block these hormones like testosterone. They actually improve it. Eating things like butter, having things with like fat in it, cholesterol, eggs, and things like that will help boost your testosterone levels. So I think that going the other way and going plant-based and all that other stuff is not the way to go. I think we need to eat nutrient-rich foods that can build our bodies, and then also be smart enough to look at what the right drugs and right supplements are for those bodies. And if anybody wants to get their blood work done, get checked out, you can do what I do. You can go to merrickhealth.com and type in Boar, and you get 10% off your labs and all that good stuff. If you guys want to get the Mind Bullet that I was drinking earlier, you can go to mindbullet.com/Chris Bell and order Mind Bullet, which is a kratom product which seems to help a lot of people with pain, anxiety, depression. And I also have a code for Piedmontese beef. If you want to check that out, go to piedmontesebeef.com. They have beef that is about 50% leaner than anything else on the market. A typical ribeye has about 60 grams of fat. Typical Piedmontese ribeye has about 30 grams of fat and is much more tender and much more juicy and delicious. It's a special breed of cattle that is unlike anything that you've ever had. Super tender, super juicy, and you can save 25% off all of Piedmontese beef by using the code BOAR at Piedmontese.com. All that stuff is available in the link in my bio at Big Strong Fast on Instagram, and you guys can send me DMs there if you have any questions. See you later.
Fighting out of Sacramento, California.
Woo! What you gonna do?
Better. Stronger.
Son of a bitch.
Faster.
Oh yeah!